Hey guys, Neal with Ready Gunner again. Hey, today I wanted to talk to you guys about something that we get a lot of questions on here in the store, and that is silencers for your firearms. Whether it's a pistol or an AR-15, they make silencers for pretty much everything today. So we have a lot of questions on the process of how to get one, if they're legal, are they illegal, you know, and it's we'll just kind of go over that today and the paperwork that's required to get a silencer. So if you've ever shot a firearm with a silencer, it just makes the range a lot more enjoyable. You don't get obviously the sound. You can shoot a lot of firearms without hearing protection, you know, with the proper silencer, and it just makes it a lot more enjoyable. You know, they can reduce the recoil, obviously they reduce the noise, and obviously they look pretty cool. So I'm gonna go through what you have to do to get a silencer and the paperwork that's required. And it's really pretty easy. I think a lot of people are intimidated, just they don't understand the process, and you know, they hear the word silencer and they're like, yeah, that's illegal, can't even do that, or that's a lot of paperwork, a lot of money, which isn't true. It's one form, and it's pretty easy. So these are some of the silencers that are on the market today. There's a ton of people that make silencers. You got Silencer Co., which is a big name in the business now, Surefire, Gemtech, Advanced Armament, Thunder Beast. So there's a ton of companies that make them, a lot of great products, and we're not going to talk about which one's better or what noise decibel reading is going to get, you know, what silencer is going to give you the best decibel reading. We're just going to talk about how you buy them. So basically, as you can see here, they're even making silencers for shotguns these days. So this is Salvo 12. It's a 12 gauge silencer, and most of this is Silencer Co. product. That's what we sell most of in our store. You know, we're big fans of their product. You got the Osprey can, which has kind of got that cool, unique look. You know, they went away from the typical, you know, round design, and which I like. They look good on the gun. And they make these 45, 40, 9mm. And then you got the little Sparrow 22, which can be used on 22 rifles or 22 handguns. I run this on my MMP 22 pistol and my MMP 22 rifle. And these things are pretty quiet. It sounds like an airsoft or a pellet gun when you shoot them. Kind of fun to shoot. Once you shoot a silencer or a firearm with a silencer on it, it's hard to go back to shooting it without a silencer. So again, the process is basically you come into our store and you say, hey, I got an AR-15 I want to suppress. What do you got? All right, most people these days are getting the Omega. These work great on the 5.56, and you can even use these in AR-10. So this is, there's a reads here, 300 caliber and down. So you can run this on an AR-10, AR-15, basically anything below a 300 cal. Back in the day, they were making caliber specific silencers, so you would need one for, you know, your 5.56, then you got to get one for your 7.62. And then a lot of people were like, well, I'll just get a 7.62 and I can run it on both my guns, right? Because the 5.56 round is going to fit through the 308. You might not get the reduction you would get on a caliber specific because the opening is specific to that round and it's not going to let as much gases out, but it's going to be pretty darn close. So a lot of people are doing that these days, where they just buy the larger caliber and they can run it on all the lower guns. Same thing with the Ospreys. A lot of people buy the 45 Osprey. You can run it on your 40, you can run it on your 9, but you're probably going to get a little bit better noise reduction on a 9mm Osprey shooting a 9mm caliber, just because that hole here is specific to that caliber. And again, the bigger hole is going to let out a little more gas on a 9mm, so you're going to get a little bit more noise out of it, but it saves you a little money. Anyway, the form you guys would need to fill out is an ATF Form 4, okay? So you come into our store, and let's say you would want to get this Omega for your AR-15, all right? So we say, okay, great. At our store, we require 20% deposits. You don't got to pay the full price of the silencer at that time. Every store is going to be a little bit different. Some stores are going to require that you pay the full amount up front because they're going to have to sit on this while they wait for this to come back. So at our store, we just say, hey, 20% down will do, and then when it comes in and you can take it home, then you pay the extra, the remaining 80%, all right? So you put 20% down at Ready Gunner, and then we'll help you fill out this Form 4. Obviously, you guys got to fill it out. You got to answer all the questions. This is just the same thing as like when you buy a firearm and you got to fill out a 4473 and do a background check, okay? The only difference is when you fill this out, we have to send it, or you have to send it to the ATF with the serial number of the silencer you're buying, and now depending on if you do this as an individual or if you do it as a trust is going to dictate what else you have to send in with it, okay? So let's talk about that a little bit. So if you buy a silencer under your name, so John Smith wants to buy a silencer and you fill this paperwork out as John Smith, what you're going to need is obviously your information. You're going to need a set of fingerprint cards. You're going to need a passport photo, and you're going to need the approved signature from your chief law enforcement officer. So that's going to be the sheriff of your area or the chief of police and whatever municipality you live in, okay? So on the back here, you kind of see where it talks about that. There's a place where he actually signs. Okay, and there's instructions on that. So basically, you got to take this to him, say, hey, I'm buying a silencer. He may or may not ask you questions on, what you're using it for or whatnot. I'm sure they're all different, but he would sign it off there. And then once you have the signature, you would send in this completed form with a fingerprint card, a passport photo, and the signature of the chief law enforcement officer for your area, okay? You send that in, and then, 5, 6, 7, 8 months later, our store will get this Form 4 back with a stamp right here. It's a $200 tax stamp. So that you have to check $200 and you send in a check, or there's a payment form where you can just put in your credit card information. And they'll take that $200. And it's taken, right now, we've seen these come back in about 3 months. It's probably the quickest we've seen in our store. But we've also seen them take up to about 12 months. What the difference is, I don't know. But right now, it's about 3 to 5 months here in Utah at our store is what we've seen, okay? There's no guarantees on that. I mean, it could be 9 months, 8 months, we just don't know. But 3 to 5 months has been the average lately. Okay, so once we get this form back from the ATF, it's going to come with a stamp here, and it just looks just like a stamp. Like duck hunters, you guys go buy a duck stamp, it's kind of the same thing. And it's going to say, NFA stamp, and basically that is what makes this legal for you to own. So basically, anytime you go to the range and you have this suppressor on your rifle, you're going to need that stamp to show that you can legally own this suppressor, okay? And that's pretty much got to go anywhere this goes. So however you do that, a lot of people will take a picture of it, shrink it, put it in their wallet. So if they run across an ATF agent in the range and they're like, hey, I want to see your stamp for that silencer, you can pull it out and be like, here it is, here's the serial number, matches this, you're good to go, okay? That's as an individual. So as a trust, it's going to be a little bit different, a little bit easier, a little bit better in my opinion, okay? Now, you can get they call it an NFA gun trust, and we do them here in our store. If you buy a suppressor from Ready Gunner, we're doing trust for $50. So we've set up an agreement with a local law firm here that does a really good job setting up gun trusts, and we've done it for a bunch of customers. And basically they buy their suppressor and say, hey, for an extra $50, we'll do the trust paperwork for you. We get it back in about 7 days. And now you would do this form as a trust. So let's say your last name is Smith, or whatever name you want to put your trust in. You can do like Smith Family Gun Trust, or Cool Guys Gun Trust, whatever you want to name it. Basically, it's going to be something, Gun Trust, or whatever you name that trust. So that information is going to go here, okay? And what the gun trust does is it makes it so you don't have to do fingerprint cards, you don't have to do passport photo, you don't need a chief law enforcement signature, which is going to save you the time of hunting that person in town and trying to get their signature on it. You still have to pay the $200, but one of the biggest benefits of the gun trust is any trustee you put on your trust can shoot that suppressor as well. So let's say you are the primary on the trust, and then you have your wife and your 2 kids. So if your wife, I don't know if this would ever happen, but if your wife is a huge gun lady and she wants to take your suppressor, be like, sure, go ahead. And she can take that suppressor as a trustee on your trust that you put on the Form 4 and take that to the range without you being there, okay? As an individual, you have to be with that suppressor, okay? You can't let anyone borrow it, you can't take it, because it's in your name and your name only, okay? Now, if you're at the range and your buddy wants to shoot it, that's totally fine, but you have to be there. You can't just lend it out and let people take it to the range. If it's a trust paperwork, anyone who's a trustee on the trust can take that suppressor with them to the range and shoot it as long as they're on that paperwork, okay? So there's a ton of benefits to it. A lot of people do because if you put it in your name and you die, heaven forbid, it happens, people die. Whoever takes possession of that gun, if it's your wife, she has to basically destroy it, get rid of it, turn it in. She can't legally have that suppressor in her house because there's no paperwork tied to her for that suppressor. It was all tied to you as a person. So she's got to get rid of that, or she's illegally owning that suppressor. So that's where the trust also comes in handy, which is huge. If you pass away, now legally your wife can still take possession and keep possession of the suppressor, and so can your kids, okay? And you can take people on and off trust all the time. So, if you ever want to take someone off, your kid's misbehaving and he's not using the silencer properly, and you say, hey, I'm taking you off the trust, then, you can do that. So it just allows more flexibility and everything else. For $50, it's well worth it. Typically, you're paying $250 or more for an attorney to do a gun trust for you. So we're doing this just because we're trying to simplify it for people. It's easier for us and easier for you guys, and it's just way more beneficial. Well worth the money, all right? So that's basically the down and dirty on the Form 4. And again, it's easy to fill out. You can see it's basically one page, okay? It's as easy as buying a firearm. The only difference is you gotta wait a little bit longer to get the paperwork back, okay? Instead of, 30-second phone call to call, the NICS or the BCI, whoever it is that's doing the background checks for whatever state you're in, and doing a background check and you get approved and you say, cool, you're good to go. We just have to send these to the ATF, they approve it, they send it back, it just takes more time, but once it comes back, it's just like a gun. So they're super easy. Come see us if you're interested in a silencer. It will change your experience at the range, 100-fold. So I hope that answers any questions you guys have. I hope I didn't miss anything. If you guys have comments or questions, just comment on the video, and we can go back and maybe comment on them. But that's pretty much it. There's not a lot to it, guys. Owning a silencer is super easy. I know that Silencer Co. right now they're trying to pass a bill where you don't have to go through this process. Like buying a suppressor would be the same as buying a firearm. We're not there yet. Who knows if it's going to pass or not pass, but I know it's in the works, but that could be way down the road. So as for now, just go do the paperwork. It's easy, and hope this was helpful. Thanks, guys.